Once upon a time, in a grand kingdom far, far away, lived a prince who had everything a prince could ever want, except for one thing: a true princess to be his bride. This wasn't for a lack of trying, mind you. The prince traveled the entire world, from shimmering desert palaces to icy northern castles. He met countless princesses, each one beautiful and charming. But there was always something off. One princess giggled too loudly, another couldn't tell a folk tale from a fable. None of them felt truly, genuinely royal. Disheartened, the prince returned home, convinced his search was hopeless. One evening, a storm of epic proportions raged outside the castle walls. Thunder crashed like giants bowling, and rain hammered against the stained glass windows. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, a faint knocking echoed from the massive front gate. The old king, curious about who would be out on such a dreadful night, went to open it himself. There, standing on the doorstep, was a sight to behold. A young woman, her hair plastered to her face and water dripping from the hem of her simple dress, looked up at him with tired eyes. "I am a princess," she said, her voice barely a whisper above the wind. "I've lost my way in the storm. Might I have shelter for the night?" The old king, being a kindly soul, was ready to welcome her in without a second thought. But the old queen, his wife, was far more skeptical. She looked the girl up and down, taking in her soaked clothes and weary expression. A real princess. The queen thought to herself, "In this state, I highly doubt it. But there is one way to be certain." A clever, almost mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. She had a plan, a secret test known only to the most discerning of royalty. She would find out, once and for all, if this rain-soaked stranger was who she claimed to be. With a polite but distant smile, the queen led the young woman towards the guest chambers. "Of course, my dear," she said sweetly. "We would be honored to host you." But as the girl was given a warm robe and something to eat, the queen hurried to the grandest guest bedroom. She ordered the servants to strip the bed completely. Then, from a small velvet pouch, she took out a single, tiny, dried pea. She placed it right in the center of the wooden bed frame. This little pea was the key to her entire plan. Only someone with the most delicate and refined sensitivity, the kind of sensitivity only a person of true noble blood could possess, would ever notice it. The queen then called for the servants again. "Bring the mattresses," she commanded, "all of them." One by one, they piled 20 thick, heavy mattresses on top of that single, lonely pea. But the queen wasn't finished. "Now for the feather beds," she declared. Another 20 of the softest, fluffiest, most luxurious feather beds, filled with the down of eider ducks, were stacked on top of the mattresses. The bed was now a towering mountain of softness, so high that a ladder was needed to climb onto it. The queen stood back, admiring her handiwork. It was a bed fit for an empress, a cloud of comfort. Surely, no one could feel a tiny pea beneath such a monumental pile of bedding. "Here is your room for the night," the Queen announced, gesturing to the colossal bed. The princess looked at the towering structure with wide eyes. "Oh my," she said, a little overwhelmed. "It's very grand." With the help of a small stepladder, she carefully climbed to the top and nestled into the mountain of feather beds. The Queen wished her a good night, a secret smile playing on her lips, and closed the door, leaving the princess to her sleep. The entire royal court held its breath. The prince, who had been told of his mother's test, paced anxiously outside his room, wondering what the morning would bring. Would this finally be the one? The next morning, the sun streamed through the castle windows, the storm having passed. The royal family gathered for breakfast, waiting for their mysterious guest. When the princess finally entered the dining hall, she looked absolutely exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, and she stifled a yawn as she greeted them. The Queen, trying to sound casual, asked, "And how did you sleep, my dear?" The princess sighed, a deep and weary sigh. "Oh, terribly," she exclaimed, rubbing her back. "Just awful. I barely closed my eyes all night. It felt as if I was lying on something hard and lumpy. I tossed and turned, but it was no use. I'm sure I'm black and blue all over this morning." A hush fell over the room. The Queen's skeptical face broke into a wide, triumphant grin. The king raised his eyebrows in astonishment, and the prince's face lit up with pure joy. He leaped from his chair, his heart soaring. Only a true, real princess, with the most incredibly delicate and sensitive nature, could possibly have felt one tiny pea through 20 mattresses and 20 feather beds. It was impossible, and yet it had happened. There was no doubt left in anyone's mind. This disheveled, rain-soaked girl was royalty through and through. The prince rushed to her side, his search finally over. He had found her. He had found his true princess. He took her hand and asked her to be his wife, and she, seeing the genuine happiness in his eyes, joyfully accepted. The castle, which had been quiet with the prince's melancholy, was now filled with celebration. Plans for a magnificent wedding were made immediately. And as for the pea, the little object that had revealed the truth, it was not thrown away or forgotten. It was given a place of honor. The prince had it placed on a velvet cushion inside a glass case and put it in the Royal Museum for all the world to see and marvel at. And there it remains to this day, unless, of course, someone has taken it. Thank you so much for joining me for this wonderful story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'll see you next time.